Hey, this is Peggy with Easy Peasy Machine Embroidery. Today we are going to be in the Premiere Plus Ultra software, specifically in the Create module, and I am going to attempt to show you how to make a mug rug with a simple applique in the center of it. And this project will be done completely in the hoop when we're finished. Um, Remember to subscribe to my channel if you want to be notified of upcoming videos that I might make, and leave comments if you need me to show you how to do something, and you put it in the comments. Chances are I'll make a video for you. I am by no means a professional. I'm just trying to help out some of my friends. So, on with the lesson. So I need you to go down into the Create module, which is in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. Remember, we are in Premiere Plus 2, and we're going to click that. And I'm going to load a picture into the Paint window. The picture that I'm going to use was just a Google image search. I searched for a free Shamrock template, and I put it out on my desktop so it was easy to find. I'm going to say next. I'm going to crop it a little bit. And I'm going to say next. Here, I am going to do the enter hoop size rather than use one of the pre-made hoop sizes up here. Reason being is that I could choose the 200 by 200 millimeter hoop, but when my design is finished and I go to export it, it's probably going to tell me that the design is too big for the hoop and it won't export. So I'm going to choose enter hoop size, and then I'm going to go 180 by 180, and that'll give me enough room to do some playing. I'm going to say next here. You could turn this down to 2 colors because you only see 2 colors, but I've found out that when you do that and you're trying to just do like a outline, satin stitch, whatever, it doesn't work so well when you narrow it down to the 2 colors. So leave the 10 colors right there. And we're going to go into Quick Create. And I am going to I'm going to turn Applique off. There's some things that I'm going to do that are going to seem a little funny to start out with, but I'm going to do just a plain running stitch around the shamrock, and that's going to tell me where I can place my fabric that I'm going to use for an applique later. And then I'm going to right click, I'm going to insert a stop, and I'm going to right click, insert a color change. The reason I do the color changes is so that I know that my machine is definitely going to stop between sections. So I'm just going to copy that running stitch. That will be stitched out on a piece of water-soluble stabilizer. And I'm going to add the running stitch again. And I'm going to do an insert stop. And actually, I'm going to use 2527. I'm going to change color to 2527. In Robeson Anton 40. Let me check that over again. It is 2527. Color change. Robeson Anton, 40, 25, 27. Soldier Blue, there we go. And hopefully I can remember that. And then I am going to put another copy of that running stitch Shamrock down there. So this is going to be what stitches out onto the stabilizer to show me where to place my batting. And this is going to hold my batting down. And then this is going to be how I stitch the top fabric on. And again, I'm going to do 2307. So I'm going to do a stop, and I'm going to right click and do insert color change. And I forgot what color it was, so I'm just going to pick any color at this point, because I can go back and change that on here. 2307. 2307. Perfect. So that should place the shamrock on there and do the outline stitches. Now I'm going to do that one more time. And insert it below. Remember, when you insert things, to make sure you are selecting the color above where you're going to place the new stitching. Right now, this is a running stitch. This one up here would be the stitch that I am sewing the fabric down. So I'm going to right click and go in Properties and change the running stitch to a double stitch. I'm going to take the length and change it to 1.5. It doesn't need to be quite such a small stitch. I'm actually going to change it to a 2, because I know there's going to be a satin stitch over there later. The running stitch, I am going to go into Properties, and I am going to change, I'm going to put no borderline for now. We'll see how this works. And then I'm going to just do probably a motif fill. And remember, we have universal motifs, Husqvarna, we've got Pfaff, and I'm going to go down to the Crazy Patch stitches and take a look in there. I'm going to pick one. I'm going to take and tune the height and width to make it larger and see how that works. And if that's okay, we're good. If not, we're going to maybe add some more to it. So I'm going to click on the Motif 2 tab. I'm going to click the box that I am going to use a motif. And let's just pick the star for now. Pretty cool. You can do any combination that you want. There are a gazillion designs out there for you to use. You could also do spacing. And play in there. And I'm also going to, at this point, do a satin line. But now that I think about it, I'm going to hit cancel here. Just going to put OK so I keep that the way I had it. I am going to do a stop after it has sewed the motifs in. And I'm going to pick another color. And it doesn't matter what colors they are. This is just a way that when we do in the hoop things, that we separate and stop between different sections so we know which section we're working on. So I have pink here, and I'm gonna go ahead and grab the outline of the shamrock again. And I'm gonna paste it underneath the pink. That's my last stitch. And I'm going to change that in properties to a satin line. I'm not going to have any fill there. And I'm going to say I want it to be a width of 5, just so I know all those little pieces of fabric ends get caught in the outline and not hang out. Okay, so there is my shamrock. Now what I'm going to do is select all of them, right-click them, and group them. So they are now traveling as one group. If I need to adjust the size a little bit, I can do that. But a better way to do that is to go to the home, and I'm going to change my hoop down to 160 by 160. Say OK. And now I am going in the Home tab to modify block and scale to fit the hoop. Now I'm going to go back up to 180 by 180. The reason I did that is because I'm going to add stuff around things later on. So another thing I'm going to do to add is after the satin line, I am going to do a color change, and I'm going to use the color black. If I can find the color black. I think it's 2296. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to add black, and that is a color that I'm going to move around later. I'm going to go into Quick Create. I'm going to go into the Shape Maker. Look at all these wonderful shapes that are in there that you can do all kinds of other stuff with. But for today, I'm just going to do a square. And I click here. And I'm going to put a running stitch. So, and now I'm just going to, if you hold down the Shift key while you're dragging your corners, they will drag out proportionally. I didn't have it done that way to start out with, so I have to adjust it a little bit. So there is my stitch out that will stitch everything down at the end. And just for kicks and giggles, I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to go into Properties And I don't want just a running stitch there, I want a triple stitch so I know that it's going to hold things together. And 2.0, I'm going to go 2.5 and say OK. Now what I'm going to do is first of all, before I do anything else, I'm going to do a save as. And for now, I'm just going to throw it out on the desktop and call it P-Z-S-H-A-M-R-O-C-K. That's so if I need to go back and change anything, I can still do it. Like right here, I want to put a stop there. Okay. So, I just saved it. File, export embroidery, VP3, and I'm going to put it out on the desktop for now. I'm going to leave the Create module open. And before I get too far, I am going to do one more thing. I am going to copy those two, and I'm going to put them right up here. Actually, there's a better way to do this. I'm going to say layout order. I want to move to the back of the design. And that's kind of counterintuitive. Oops, doesn't want to do that. 1, 2. All right, we'll do this another way. There's always a couple different ways to do things. 2, 3, copy. I am going to go up here. I'm going to insert it. And then I'm going to take and run that group down underneath. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3 as a group. And then we have these as a group. And we're going to save it. So I wanted these, the outlines and the stitch downs to be a little bit separated. All right. One last thing. You really have to think about how these things are going to go together. The running stitch that I placed in the beginning, does it really need to be there? I'm going to delete that group. All right. I think I'm happy with the way it's going to be. I can always come back later if I need to. So, File, Export. We are going to the desktop, PZ Shamrock exported, and we're going to say yes here. We are going to open it up, and we are going to go into the wizards and quilt block wizard. We're going to put an inner embroidery in there. So we're going to next, and 200 by 200 I believe is what I'm going to use. We're going to open an embroidery, and I threw it out there on the desktop. So there it is. I'm going to say next. And now looking at this, I see where there's an issue. I put that last little stitch out on there, and it's going to do the stippling on the very, very outside and not around the whole shamrock like I want it. So this is why I kept my Create module open. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to do a cut. And we're going to do a save and an export. I'm starting to learn that I shouldn't start videos over when I start making mistakes, because those are learning items for you people also. So I am going to go back into the wizard. I'm going to do inner embroidery, 200 by 200, open embroidery. There is the shamrock. Right now it's a margin of 5. That is the margin between the outside of the design and where the quilt block stippling will be. And there is the stippling. It can be changed. You can set the gap higher. You can do straight versus curved, running versus triple stitches, things like that. So I'm going to say OK here. So there is my quilt block. And then I'm going to do one last thing to it. I'm going to save as, so we're going to actually export it. And I'm going to put it out on the desktop. And I am going to call it Shamrock Exported. And now I'm going to go back into Create. And I'm going to go New. And this time, I'm going to say Cancel. And I'm going to insert embroidery from the desktop to the Shamrock. Remember, we're going to be using a 200 by 200 hoop. So now I can go get the 200 by 200. And I'm going to hold down my Shift key. And I'm going to just bring it in just a tiny bit. And now I'm going to go way down to the end. I'm going to do my stop. And let's see if it's still going to paste what I just did. Perfect. Okay, so now we have the outline. That will stitch around the entire design later. And then one last thing that I have seen people do. I'm going to do a 2296, so I'm going to insert color, say OK, and now I'm going to go into Precise Create. Make sure I'm clicked in the right spot, Precise Create, And I'm just going to find my center, and I'm going to put a line here, and it can be a double stitch. And I'm going to do the same thing over here on this side. They don't have to be exact. And I'm going to grab them, move that line over. Then I'm going to go back up here and move this line over so it's right on top of the other one. And that should do it. So we're going to do a save as, and I'm going to call it Shamrock, but I'm going to call it Quilted. I'm going to call it Shamrock Quilted or Shamrock Mug Rug or something like that, so the original Shamrock stays intact. Okay. Now we are going to go back and export it. Make sure that it has been exported because I've done that before. That's quilted. And say OK. If you don't do it both places, you won't have the file to go back through and change later. And you might even just forget that you exported it, and next thing you know, you've deleted your exported file. So I am now going to insert, and we're going to do the quilted one. And then I talked about going into the design player. So I already see something that is wrong. This outside color needs to go in last, but not a problem. I'm just going to go select it so that it has boxes around it. I'm going to go into modify. I am going to click on the black, and I am going to drop it down to the last position. Now I'm going to go home to the design player again. So there's the interfacing, and the fabric is all down there. Hopefully all that kind of stuff is stitched out. It doesn't show the stops when you're playing the stitch out. So there is the stippling. There is the tack down around the outside edge. Now we're going to do the inner motifs and the outline. And there's a line. So at this point, I'm going to stop it. At this point, I'm going to lay 2 pieces of fabric that are about just a little bit wider than what's on the screen, and definitely about 3/4 of the size bigger. And I'm going to take that strip and fold it in half, cut across that fold, and then I'm going to turn it each the wide end over 1/4 inch and then another 1/2 inch. I'm going to iron that, and then I'm going to place them face down on top of this finished shamrock design. Once I have my fabric in place, I will probably tape them with some painter's tape or medical tape or something that will hold these edges down. And then it's going to stitch the over the edges of the folds. If you don't do that, and if you don't be very, very careful with that, the fold will get caught in your sensor Q foot. That's not a good thing, so pay attention when you're doing that. If you can stop it, if it starts getting caught in your sensor Q foot, you can back it up pretty quick and just, with a stiletto, slide those edges down if they haven't been taped. So there it goes. And double stitch around the outside, and we're done. And you should be able to now turn it right side out, and you're finished. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and hopefully I have helped you a little bit. This is a great way to play with the Create module, make little bitty mug rugs or pot holders or whatever. Very easy. You don't have to do any kind of binding or anything. It's really great. Okay, bye. Thanks.